And thank you, everybody, for coming out today. I really appreciate it. I know it's still a little early, so good morning to you. Like I was saying, my name is Ernest. I am the co-founder and CEO at Follow My Vote. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about me, my story, how we got on this path that we're currently on, what was my passion, what was my inspiration to putting us on the path that we're on, talk about my vision for the future of voting in the United States and really throughout the world, and then demonstrate our software that we developed to date. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right in. I've always been very, very interested in law, in power structures, in the ways of the world, kind of what goes on above the water and underneath as well. And therefore, I've really been interested in politics a lot. Our politicians create our laws and rules that we must follow. So very, very anxious to get involved in the political scene. And the first time that I ever got to vote was in the year 2000. Okay, in the year 2000, I had just turned 18. In the United States, you get to vote at age of 18. So when I turned 18, I got to vote in this election, the most controversial election in U.S. history. It was actually George Bush and Al Gore. And I don't know how many of you know of this election or how it went down, but really quickly I'll go through it. At the end of the day, it came down to one state, really, in Florida. And right off the bat, the media announced that Al Gore had won the election. And shortly after that, the media came back on and said, no, wait a minute. George Bush actually won the election. And that made Al Gore really, really mad. He called for a recount in the election. He said, I don't accept this outcome. I want to do a recount. And so you can do that as a contestant in an election. And like I said, it came down to Florida. And if you look right here, this is the way that we were casting our ballots in 2000. This is called a Chad, or a hanging Chad. It was infamous in showing how ridiculous our voting systems were at the time. This is a piece of paper. You literally had to use a pencil or a pen and poke holes in a piece of paper to indicate which politician you wanted to serve as president of the United States. So as you can see, some people didn't completely poke all the way through the hole. Some people kind of just dented the hole. There was a lot of speculation around voter intent. And you have people with magnifying glasses out saying, oh, is this a true vote? Is this a valid vote or not? I mean, it got to a point where it's pretty ridiculous. But again, it was all centered around Florida and the contention there. Ultimately, about a month into the recounts, so we started the recount, we got the process going, and in December, the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, stepped in and said, enough is enough. We're going to stop this recount. George Bush, and basically award George Bush the election. And so that's what happened in the election of the year 2000. And I didn't sit well with me, As a United States citizen, I wanted to know the truth. My country was actively investigating the truth. They were going to get to the bottom of who rightfully won the election. But they stopped the investigation of truth. We weren't allowed to know. And what it did for me, at the end of the day, I just wanted to know that my vote counted. I wanted a way to be able to count my own vote and make sure that it was recorded properly. I mean, I would have loved to independently verify the results of the entire election, to check it myself, but I couldn't do that. What I realized is that elections happen in a black box. I mean, they really do. Even to this day, they happen in a black box. There's no way for you as a voter to independently verify the results of an election that's hosted within your country, at least within my country. And that's a problem I think we can solve. At the time, though, I mean, I'm 18 years old. This is, 16 years ago. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, let alone how to solve this big problem. But I took a pledge. I said, one day I'm going to make this right. One day I'm going to figure it out. It took 14 years. In 2014, I learned of blockchain technology. Okay, blockchain technology is a decentralized way of storing data in a database, one that's secure. Just a little quick diagram here for those of you. I know we're all pretty savvy in blockchain, but for those of you that don't know about blockchain and how it works, the key advantage is that it's a decentralized peer-to-peer network. if you look up here, this is a centralized system, right? This is an example of a centralized system. For hackers, it's an easy target, right? It's one single source of truth where all the data is stored. If you could successfully hack a centralized database, you could change a bunch of records and no one would be the wiser, right? So with the decentralized database, with a blockchain database, every single, you can think of these dots as nodes in the blockchain database. Every single node is responsible for keeping a full copy of the database. They take turns adding new blocks, new database records to the chain. And they can't, when they submit a new record, they can't say, hey guys, here's the new record, copy it onto your chain. They have to submit the full copy, the entire copy of the database since the beginning of history, along with that new record. And it comes from, sorry about that, buttons are stuck here. But say this is the one that submits it, well, it's going to have to go through the chain, and everyone's going to get a chance to check the new submission against their copy of the database and make sure that that person hasn't changed anything with respect to the database. And if they have, it's going to be detectable and it's going to get rejected. And so decentralized database like this has the ability to police itself and make sure that records aren't changed, that the record of history isn't changed along the way. So this kind of system is perfect for like financial transactions like Bitcoin. You know, blockchain technology was first introduced to the world in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto by way of Bitcoin. And since 2009, it has not been hacked. So the technology is proving itself out. Once I learned of blockchain technology and realized that this could solve the problem back in 2000, that we could use blockchain technology to not only build a verifiable voting system, there's a system that existed out there that I could go in and count my vote and be assured it was counted correctly, that we could also bring voting securely online. So that was also very, very exciting. Well, I've set out over the last 2 years to educate people. I've traveled the world. I've talked to people. I said, look, we now are in a new paradigm of what's technologically possible. You know, if we leverage today's technology, we can solve some of the problems that have existed with respect to our voting systems for quite some time. Now, on my path to educating the people, I met my technical co-founder, Nathan Hort. We brought Nathan Hort on as our CTO in 2015. Nathan Hort was the architect of the graphene blockchain framework. So he literally wrote a blockchain protocol from scratch, working with one other person, Dan Larimer. This guy's an accomplished blockchain architect. The software that we're developing right now is going to be integrated directly with this framework. But we got started in September of 2015, and again, I'll show you at the end of this presentation kind of where we're at with the software. But more on voting. Voting is just the first big challenge that we're going to tackle within Follow My Vote. We are not a voting company, but we know how to solve this big problem with respect to voting, and so we're going to do it by leveraging blockchain technology. I'm going to quickly run through some of the problems that exist, at least with voting systems in my country. Paper. A lot of people vote by paper in my country, and it's just not secure. Paper relies on procedural security. You know, it relies you to go to a centralized polling location and work with volunteers, work with people to make sure that ballots are issued correctly, that ballots are cast correctly, counted correctly, and stored correctly. There's a lot of human interaction that's involved in paper-based voting. The reality is people aren't perfect. You know, people make mistakes. And you know, also people can be corrupted too. So paper-based voting is susceptible to being corrupted, and it's susceptible for people to make mistakes that ultimately could unfairly affect the outcome of an election. So I really don't think paper really is the best way to go. Mail. So in Oregon, in the United States, Oregon does all of their voting by mail. But the University of Minnesota has done a study where up to 6 to 15% of mail gets delivered late. And that's a problem if you're casting your vote in an election and it gets there late. It's not going to count. Not only that, up to 2% of all U.S. postal mail gets lost, flat out lost. And if you think about how close some of these elections get, I mean, some elections can be decided by half a percentage point. So if 2% of your votes are getting lost, I mean, just the mechanism by which you're using to cast your vote could unfairly affect the outcome of an election. So mail has its problems too. Voting machines. Voting machines are vulnerable. Over the years, there have been several different voting machines that have been exposed for having vulnerabilities. Princeton has done a lot of studies around voting. 2007, they did an infamous study about the Sequoia voting machine and showed within a few minutes' time, you could easily hack into a voting system with basic rudimentary computer science knowledge and hack the outcome of the election, and no one could really tell. More recently, in 2015, this happened in my state, in Virginia. Governor McAuliffe decertified the win-vote voting machines. There was a huge scandal. These voting machines had been used in several election cycles. But they did a study, and they found that anyone sitting in their car outside a centralized polling location could literally use a laptop computer and hack into the wireless network that was running inside the polling location. And then from there, using the password ABCDE, access the voting system and change a bunch of votes. Literally, that was the administrative password on this system. It's like they didn't even try to secure the system. It makes you wonder, right? But that's how bad these systems can be. And so this is not the answer. This is not the future of voting. Another thing to be thinking about is that the world is coming online. This is some research from Forrester Research, and it says, by next year, 50%, of people are going to be online, are going to have smartphones. They're going to be able to do everything from their smartphone. So when you're thinking about designing a voting system of the future, you want to be where the future is going to be, and everything is going mobile. I'll give you an example of that. Netflix and Blockbuster. Many of you probably don't know what Blockbuster is, but Blockbuster was a video rental store in the United States. And people would go to an actual store, and they would go rent movies and take the movies home and go play them. And then Netflix came out. It was an online streaming service where I didn't have to leave my house. I could just go online and I could download the movies and watch the movies. So what it did is save people time. It saved people the time and effort and the hassle of having to go rent a movie. In a lot of ways, people want to vote online. Like I said, I've traveled the world. I talked to a lot of people. They want a convenient, secure way to cast their vote from their own device. And with our technology, you'll be able to do that. So really, our design approach is far superior. In the past, companies like Dominion and other companies, they've tried to build online voting systems. They've tried and failed because of the technological approach that they've taken. The key differentiator between what we're doing and what they did is that we're using blockchain technology. Blockchain technology really is going to allow for end-to-end verifiable voting. We already went over decentralization a little bit, so I won't hit on that, but it uses a decentralized network, peer-to-peer network, to store data in a database. And it's verifiable. So the blockchain is a publicly verifiable database. And not only is a database verifiable, but using a verifiable database and our voting system, what people can literally do when they cast their vote in an election, they can follow their vote into the ballot box and confirm with their own eyes that their vote was safely and securely stored on the blockchain, just as they cast it. So what we're talking about is honesty, verifiability, being able to confirm with your own eyes your voice was heard by your government and that it was heard correctly. And I'll go over in just a minute. I'll do a little demonstration while I'm up here about how we can do that while keeping your identity private. And so that when your vote is stored publicly for the world to see, no one will be able to tell that that is your vote. And so it's our anonymous ballot issuance process. And it's a really innovative process. I'll tell you about it in just a minute. But again, blockchain technology, it stores data in an irreversible way. Irreversible means that you can't change it. So once a vote gets stored on the blockchain, it's there forever. It's permanent record of history, and you can't go back and change it. So that's ideal for a voting system. Privacy, I just touched on that. We have a way to protect people's privacy, but yet make it publicly verifiable. Censorship proof, and it's open source. So all of our code is open source. We host our code on github.com. You can go to github.com right now, github.com/followmyvote, and you can see our repositories that we have. We're developing all of our code. As we develop it, we push it out. We're inviting code contributors from all over the world to come and help us out on our project. I'll talk about that in just a bit as well. But if you're going to build a voting system, it's got to be open source. I mean, you can't trust it if it's not. I mean, so you have to be able to put your code out there, and people have to be able to review it. People have to be able to compile it themselves. They have to see how it works. They have to know for a fact there's nothing going on behind the scenes. And there isn't a single player in the voting system space right now that does open source voting. They keep all their code proprietary. You have no idea what's going on in their voting systems. For all you know, they could be manipulating the outcome of elections. So this is our end-to-end verifiable voting process that I talked about. This is what allows us to create a system in a way you can have your vote cast and verify it without your identity being revealed. The first step in the process is identity verification. Okay, when you're doing an online voting system, you got to have identity verification. You got to know who's voting. And so I'll talk about one of the ways that we could do identity verification real quick. And this is the way that we do it in Virginia. In the United States. So when I go to a centralized polling location to vote in Virginia, I have to show up and I have to show them my ID card. And I say, hey, I'm Adam Ernest, I'm here to vote. And they take my ID card, they look at it, they look at the front and the back of the ID card, they look at me and they say, okay, that's you. They give it back to me and then they cross-reference that on a list, a database list of registered voters. And they say, okay, you're registered to vote. Here's your ballot, you can go vote. And that all happens at the centralized polling location. Well, there's no reason we can't bring that entire process online. And we can do that using our software. So the way that we've designed it, the key innovation is that we're using I don't want to get too technical here, but we're using two sets of cryptographic keys. Okay, we have an identity key pair and a voting key pair. And when I go in our online voting system, when I go get my identity verified, I would take my ID card and submit it to an identity verifier so that they could verify. So with my phone, I could take, completely online, right? I could take a picture of myself. Every cell phone's got a camera now. Take a picture of myself, take a picture of the front and back of my ID card, and get that submitted electronically to identity verifier. That data would come through. They could check it out, make sure it's all legit. And then they would cryptographically sign that my ID is legitimate and it's unique. It's the first time I've come through this system, and that I should be authorized to request a ballot for my proper jurisdiction based on my address. All right? And then from there, what I would do from there is I would take a blinded token. Now, there's a piece of paper inside here, right? And I'm just going to demonstrate what a blinded token would be here. But consider this to be a blinded token. There is a piece of paper in here which has been blinded by this envelope, okay? So no one can see what's in the envelope. So what I would do is, after I've gotten my identity verified, I would go to the registrar within our voting system and say, hey, I've gotten my ID certified as unique, and I want you to sign this blinded token giving me authorization to request a ballot in the voting system. And so what would happen is they would look at my ID, see the certification from the identity verifier and say, yeah, that's a legitimate ID certification. Okay, I will sign your blinded token. So they'll sign right here and put their signature right here on it, and they'll give it back to me. And then what I'll do is I can tuck away my ID card now. So my identity card, my ID key pair, is now out of the question. So what I can do is I can unblind this token. And we're on to this step, yeah. So we get the blinded token signature, and then basically I can throw away my envelope. Now I have an unblinded token. I have a token here that's signed by the registrar. I go back to the registrar with my voting key now, right? Because there's two pairs. The ID key pair is out and done with. That's associated to my identity. And so when I finally want to go request my ballot, I don't want to be using that ID key pair. I want to use my voting key pair. And so I go to my voting key pair, which gets automatically generated by the software. No one knows Not the government, not Follow My Vote. No one knows what your voting key pair is. It's something that's private to you. It would be an alphanumeric set of characters like X3, Y5, Z4, long string of characters. That would how you would be recognized in the system. You could take that key pair and you use your public key and say, hey, registrar, you've signed this piece of paper to allow me to request a ballot. And he can look at it and say, yep, that's my signature. Okay, here's your ballot. Now go cast your vote. And so then I can cast my vote anonymously, because the registrar doesn't know what my voting key is my voting key. So I have a way, because we're using two separate ID key pair and a voting key pair, and separating that process of identity verification versus requesting your ballot. When you actually go and vote, your vote is seen in the system based on your voting key. And so that way it makes it completely anonymous. This is something that's never been done before, and it's a really unique innovation. So it's a real game changer. I mean, we literally don't need to even encrypt our votes. Every other company out there that's trying to do some online-based voting is encrypting all of their votes and hiding the ballot and the ballot decisions. But we can make everything end-to-end verifiable completely from start to finish. That's why we say end-to-end verifiable voting is voting of the future, because there's no better way to do it. We're just the only ones that figured out how. Now, when it comes to identity verification, I just talked about government-issued ID verification, but we've architected our system to be flexible enough to handle several different types of identity verification. One was Jumio as a partner, someone we're considering partnering with. They do government-issued identity verification. And that would be what I just went over. There's also like information-based identity verification, where companies may ask you questions, like where did you live in 2012, or what kind of car did you own in 2014? And you'll be able to verify your identity by accurately answering those questions. They also have biometric identity verification, like a fingerprint scan or a retina scan. We can integrate with any of these systems, and you can even do a combination of these systems to ultimately. It all depends on who the client is, what the customer is, and really what types of identity verification they're willing to accept. If you think about it, you go out country by country. Not every country is going to want to do identity verification in certain ways. You know, like Iceland has bank IDs. Pakistan wants to do biometric data. All these different countries, they have their own way of doing it, and we can customize our system to meet their needs. Keeps double tapping on me. Wanted to share this with you really quickly. We got an opportunity to be involved in this publication that came out earlier in the year, but put out by Roots Democracy. It's an organization out of the UK. They did a study on secure online voting. They tapped some of the biggest industry players from around the world, companies like Verizon, Seidel, some of the big heavy hitters, and they also contacted us. And then we had a 5-page spread in this book. It was like a 100-page study that talked about all the ways that our system handles some of the challenges that you would face when trying to develop a secure online voting system. So we really are out there, not just saying, hey, let's do blockchain voting, but we've really thought it through. We figured out how this needs to be done, and our designs are getting recognition and positioning us as a leader, a global leader in designing secure online voting systems. So much so we've been recognized in the media. We have been in the Huffington Post, Bitcoin Magazine, Forbes, Discovery Channel, Network World, The Telegraph. They're all writing about us. Most recently it was Forbes. But this software has an ability to change the game, change things fundamentally. And so a lot of people are getting really excited about it. As of right now, where we're at with our software, we've just released an alpha version of our stake-weighted voting system. So there's going to be two types of voting systems that we develop. The stake-weighted voting system, and this is a GitHub link if you want to go check it out, a GitHub repo. That's where all our code is right now. But the stake-weighted voting system is the simplest version of our voting system. It's a voting system that could be used to support like shareholder voting for corporations. It's stake-weighted, meaning that like shares in a company, right? When you go and vote, if you own shares in a company and you vote on things like board of directors and stuff, your vote is weighted proportional to how many shares that you own. So the cool thing about this software is we can integrate this software with any blockchain that's out there. We can allow blockchain communities, token holders, to create polls, on anything that they want, and poll the cryptocurrency token holders on any issue. We've architected our system to really be blockchain agnostic and to be portable. Right now, we've integrated this system with the blockchain, the graphene blockchain framework, which BitShares is using, Steam and a few others. But this system is our more simplified version. We're going to be adding on the identity verification component, as well as the anonymous ballot issuance process. And that way, we'll have full one-person, anonymous, one-person, one-vote style of voting, where we can do polls, we can do referendums, we could even obviously do elections and things like that. We got beta testers that are lining up to test our software. Like I said, we're working with the BitShares community to do our stake-weighted voting system. We'll do some proxy voting and things like that. We also have some student organizations at Virginia Tech that want to work with us to test it out when it's ready to go. Liberland, V. Jedlichka, the president of Liberland, is interested in beta testing our software, looking at it as a possibility for them to use in Liberland. So we do have a lot of interest. We're also looking for implementation opportunities of this software. The reality is there are a lot of countries that are more advanced and more ready to adopt a solution like this. They want to bring their voting systems into the modern age. They want to reduce security vulnerabilities. They want to lower their costs. I mean, our system, it's very rare that you can provide a superior system from a technology standpoint and reduce costs at the same time, but this is what we can do with our system. We're looking at Iceland, Jamaica, the Netherlands. Iceland, we have connections to the Pirate Party in Iceland. They're about to take over majority seat in the parliament in 2017. So we're looking to engage with them. We are connected with them on social media. They like a lot of what we're doing. The Netherlands, we're actively in talks with them right now. There are some opportunities in the United States as well, but the United States, believe it or not, is really slow when it comes to adopting new voting technology. There's only like 3 or 4 companies that dominate the industry, and there's an incentive not to innovate. These companies just sit there and collect contracts, and they do the same thing, same way. And a lot of people like the way the system is in the United States. People have figured out how to game the system, and if you start talking about changing the way voting is done, you could jeopardize their chances of getting reelected. The next time voting comes around. So it's a very political thing in some cases, depending on how you look at it. And so we're having to really convince people that our solution is the right call, and it is the future, and it will ultimately help improve voting. But there are some use cases, like in Virginia, they want to push online voting for overseas military. And so if we can start to work with them to do voting for overseas military, people are going to start asking the question, well, if the military can do it, why can't we do it? And that could be a way it rolls out all over Virginia. And if we get one state in the United States, the other ones are likely to follow. But really what I would like to see is our system being implemented worldwide. I mean, what we're really talking about is honest voting. There isn't an honest voting system that exists worldwide. I think humanity deserves honesty. I don't care what type of society you live in, but there should be technology that exists that people can use to host honest polls and honest elections. This is our competition. Like I said, there's a few companies that have dominated the industry for a while, but they're working on that old paradigm of what's technologically possible. When I first went to an industry conference and talked about our design approach and what we could do to revolutionize voting and change things and make it so much better, they're scratching their heads, looking like we just came and dropped alien technology out of the sky, and we're like, here it is, here's the solution to all your problems. And they're trying to understand, like wrapping their heads around how it even works. So we're far ahead of them in terms of developing the software, and think that once we get there, all it's takes is an effective demonstration of the power of our software for us to really get our foot in the door and start to light up the darkness in the United States and really make sure that our outcomes of our elections are true and honest. We need all the help that we can get. If you're a developer, if you're a coder, we would love your help and your support. Like I said, we develop all of our code as open source. We're on GitHub. We're trying to solve a global issue. This type of project is going to go down in history. I mean, we're really trying to make a big difference and a big impact in the world. We develop all of our code in C++ on the back end, and we're using QML on the front end. And like I said, if you have any coding skills or know someone, please contact me or our CTO. I'll give you my information here again at the end. But we're also looking for hackers too. People that can break systems, people that can hack. Because once we get the system up and running, we want to do a demonstration, and we want to invite hackers from all over the world to come and try to hack the system and see if they can infiltrate the system and change votes in any way. So that'll be fun. If you want to eventually try to participate in some sort of penetration testing or doing something like that, let me know, and we can put you on the roster. Like I said before, there are some countries out there that aren't really too excited about adopting this software. Some are, some aren't. And those that aren't, we really want to build grassroots movement, take this to the people, and let them know about all the benefits that our software provides. Ultimately, honest, verifiable, secure elections, voting convenience from your own device, those sort of things. So it's a no-brainer in terms of all the benefits it provides. But again, some countries don't want it for one reason or another. So we're working to bring in ambassadors from countries all over the world and states in the United States to really help push this message, about the future voting and the new technologies that have come out. Ultimately, getting the people to lobby the government on our behalf, because we're still a small team. We don't have the time to go knocking on doors. So we're looking for people that want to get involved and help spread the word about this technology. Knowing that we got a lot of money and influence stacked against us, like I said, those billion-dollar voting companies that have built these horrible systems and kind of control the market, we realize we got a lot of money and influence stacked against us. So we're forming strategic partnerships where we can, and it's about strength in numbers. Recently, Free and Equal, I went out to California and spoke on a panel at Politicon 2016. They gave me a platform to talk about our U.S. elections rigged, and there was a lot of discussion. The reality is, as far as the U.S. elections being rigged, the better question is, are they rigged, but can they be rigged? And knowing what I know about voting systems in the United States and knowing the vulnerabilities with every method that we use, I absolutely believe that they can be rigged. And if something can happen, eventually someone's going to try it. And so we have to keep that in mind. And our system would literally eliminate the ability for people to corrupt an election, to commit election fraud. Here's where we're located. We're in Virginia. Actually, the dot's not showing up. We're right here. Right here in Virginia. We're about 3 hours outside of D.C., Washington, D.C. So we're pretty close. We're at the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. I graduated from Virginia Tech in 2004 and just moved back about 10 years ago. And we're recruiting out of Virginia Tech. We're growing our team there. Our mission, like I said, voting is just one of the many things that we want to do. But really our mission is to promote truth and freedom. It's to empower individuals to work together to develop non-coercive solutions to societal problems. And we want to build the tools, the technology that allows people to figure out what their problems are and to solve them themselves. Ultimately, I believe that we're smart enough. People are smart enough to one day govern themselves if they have the right tools in place to make it a reality. As far as my talk about voting in particular, those are the slides that I wanted to go through. And so I am good here on that. Now I want to switch gears and show you guys a little bit about show you our voting software. It looks like we do have a few minutes. So I can demonstrate our software. While I'm walking up here, is there any questions that I have? Anyone want to ask any questions in the audience right now for what I talked about so far?
Yes, hi. A few technical points. You were talking about two sets of key pairs. There is the ID key pair, and there is the voting key pair.
Right.
What is in place to make sure that that the voting key pairs don't get generated randomly, don't get generated in excess of voting key pairs? What's the guarantee of one-to-one correspondence between the ID key pair, between an ID key pair, while preserving the anonymity and the privacy, to exactly one and only a voting key pair?
I'm sorry, so can you say that one more time?
You've got for every voter, you've got a voting key pair.
Mm-hmm.
For you've got an ID key pair. For one voter, you first issue an ID key pair, and then you said by some so far unexplained process, you issue a voting key pair.
Yeah.
What technology do you use to make sure that there is exactly one voting key pair for every exactly one ID key pair? That somebody somewhere somehow doesn't generate 300 more voting key pairs or doesn't get lost. The voting key pairs don't get lost somewhere somehow. Yeah,
I mean that's a good question. As far as I know, it doesn't happen within our software. It's automatically generated when you first start the software. Your key pairs are generated themselves, and there's no way for someone to generate another key pair. You have to use your identity key pair to start the registration process in order to get a ballot to vote in, right? So it's your identity key pair, I think, is what's allowing you to request the ballot to begin with. So it really doesn't matter how many voting key pairs that you even have. It starts with your ID key requesting a ballot. Does that make sense?
No, but go ahead.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
I have two questions. My first question is, can I sell my vote? And the second question is, if I have a picture of you and your ID, can I register your identity?
So, can you sell your own vote? So there's not going to be a necessarily way that anyone can cryptographically prove that you have voted a certain way. So if someone wants to pay you to say, hey, I'll pay you to vote this way, they can do that. But there's no way that you're going to be able to prove to them, based on what you can access from our system, that you have in fact voted in the way you said you were going to vote. So people essentially would be paying you to vote a certain way without being guaranteed that you have voted that way, if that makes sense. What was your second question?
If I have a picture of you and a picture of your ID, can I register your identity?
Well, there's a lot of things you can do to thwart that, right? So for instance, we can architect the voting system, the submission of your ID or your information, your picture. We can do it in a way where it has to be literally, we can timestamp it, right? Like you could have, take a picture of yourself and say, okay, it has to be a picture taken in the last 30 seconds or last 3 minutes. And that has to be submitted along with a copy of the other pictures of your identity information, like your ID card. So you could, depending on how you approach capturing that information and sending that information, there's ways to prevent that. But there, like I said, Jumio, they built a $1 million business on being able to handle submissions of information, and they're thinking about things like this. I actually gave them the idea to do the whole timestamp thing. So there's ways to prevent it by doing certain things like that.
Okay, I have a question. How far you're from like an installable non-alpha app on your smartphone that you can use for voting? Because it looks like you have a very nice white paper. You have some code which is alpha, and when can people actually install it from App Store or Google Marketplace and use it?
Right, that's a tough question to ask. I knew someone would. Software is tough to estimate in terms of when it's going to be completed, especially if you're doing something that's never been done before. You know, we're really having to invent things for the first time and develop things for the first time based on new designs. And right now, it matters on really how many co-contributors we're able to bring on. And also how much funds we can bring into the business. I would like to see an app by the end of next year. I would like to see, I think it's totally doable, that we could have a working end-to-end verifiable one person, one vote style voting system in app stores by the end of next year. That's a goal that I've set, and I think it's achievable. But again, the software development world is a little unpredictable. But if you're interested, you can definitely sign up for our beta and follow us along the way, and you'll know as soon as there's something ready.
All right. I had a question about scalability. Like all the nodes need to synchronize. This is how blockchain work. It might take some time, but like the question is it going to take weeks? That's a possibility, right? How do you announce the result of your election if it takes weeks to stabilize?
So we're using you're thinking it'll take weeks to stabilize?
Well, I'm asking, like, is it a possibility? And if it does, how do you handle that?
No, we were using the graphene blockchain framework, and this framework is the first industrial blockchain framework, industrial grade blockchain framework. It's capable of processing thousands of transactions per second. They've clocked it at upwards of 100,000 transactions per second. I mean, that's faster than the NASDAQ. So we can process, you know, as many votes as possible, and we literally have live results that are coming into our system. So as soon as the election closes, we're going to know what the accurate vote count is at the end. Does that answer your question?
Okay.
Okay.
So maybe one last question.
Yeah, I'm having trouble trying to pick this screen up. Let me see if we can. All right. I'll just turn around. So, this is an example of a simple voting interface that we've done. Let me set this down. So we have integrated our voting system right now with the graphene blockchain framework. Let me get this is all off, so give me a second. This is a copy of what we've done is actually we've cloned the entire BitShares blockchain. So BitShares is one of the 700 plus blockchains that exist out there. BitShares works off of proof of work as opposed to proof of stake. This system is the one is built on the graphene blockchain framework, which again our CTO developed from scratch. He's very comfortable with this. But again, we can integrate with all different types of blockchains. But for this demonstration, it's going to be with the BitShares blockchain. I have a full node of the blockchain running on this computer. What I can do is demonstrate creating a contest right now using our actual software. So, and then I'll show you, we can cast some votes, and then I'll show you how everything lines up, and how it's totally accurate. And you can see the different assets that we have and the weight of those assets, and that the votes are actually being recorded in the system. So I had preloaded a couple, how that's got in there, preloaded a couple of contests there. This is a wallet. Oops. Usually using my mouse here. It's a little sticky. All right, let's go down to Adam, and then we're going to go to create contest. So anybody got a question that they would want to ask, say the BitShares community? Okay, that's a good one. Do you believe and so right here, BitShares allows you to create several different assets or coins. You can create a user-issued asset, like if you wanted to list your company and create shares of your company on the BitShares blockchain, you could do that. And it would be listed as a coin here, similar like a vote, a ticker, a symbol for like a stock. We have a few different assets that we can do polls on. I'm going to use the core asset of BitShares to do this. I'm going to go ahead and just add in these contestants real quick. All right, a very, very simple poll. And I'm going to click checkout. So it's going to ask me if I wanted to complete this purchase. It's going to cost 10 votes. We've created another asset called Vote on the BitShares blockchain. And so to create this contest, it costs 10 vote. And so we would click purchase here. And so what happens is it has you authorize the transaction in your wallet. Let me unlock the wallet real quick. I needed to do that. So now it's asking, it's confirming, hey, using your BitShares wallet, do you really want to pay to create this contest? And I said, yeah. You can see it says 10 vote right here. So yeah, I'm going to authorize a transaction of paying 10 vote to create this contest. So I broadcast it to the blockchain. So the payment is in. So I should be able to go back to the voting system. You can see it's pending blocks. It's pending 5 blocks. This is the block head count of where we're at right now. And so 4 more blocks, that'll be inside the system. The payment will have transferred. I believe now we can still go and actually go see the contests. All right, and there you go. Inside the voting system, now we actually have a contest that says, do you believe Follow My Vote's voting system is secure? And I'm going to say yes. I believe it's secure. It's now pending right now. It's a pending vote, but I can go ahead and cast my vote now. And casting your vote is literally broadcasting your vote into the blockchain. So we're going to be publishing our vote on the blockchain. And it does cost money to publish votes on the blockchain. So it's another transaction that you have to authorize within your wallet. So right there you confirm, yes, I want to broadcast my vote. It's been confirmed. Now I can go back and look down in here. And you can see my vote has been cast. It's been successfully cast. You can see that it was me that voted and the weight associated to it. So this was based on the core asset. So if I go back, if you take note of this weight down here, I don't know if you can see it because my big head's in the way, but that is the weight there, and it comes through the time in which it was voted and who I voted for. And again, this is the stake-weighted voting system. It doesn't have the anonymity that our full system will have once that's complete. but this is just for demo purposes. And you can see we did this poll based on core asset, and you can see how much core asset I have right here. And again, going back to the voting app, you can see now that it has my weight aligned there. So that's basically how this voting system would work now. You can change your vote too, for instance. If I wanted to, for some reason I lost confidence in my system, I don't know why, how or when that would ever happen, but I could change my vote to no. I would quickly go and authorize that transaction. Because depending on what you're voting on, you may want to change your vote. Like specifically in an election, if you vote for someone and then in the days leading up to election you hear a debate and they say something like, "Whoa, I don't know he believed in that. I don't want to vote for him anymore." You could change your vote. And so now there's a record in the system of me changing my vote. You can see down here, it says I've replaced one of my decisions. So it shows my original vote there, that I voted yes, but then later on I came back in and voted no. So you have the ability to vote or change your vote or even revoke your vote if you just want to abstain. But that's basically how it works. And this is integrated with the blockchain. And I'll end by showing you this one last piece because I know we got to get going here. But this is the architecture in which we used to actually create the system. Come on. This is kind of how it all works. We have this is the application. This is the user interface. This is the voting system. It connects through a backend API directly to our servers. Our servers are actually scanning the blockchain for valid voting transactions. So the blockchain is down here in this diagram. So our servers are constantly cataloging votes that are cast from our system into our servers, so they're easily navigatable. And then this is where the blockchain wallet is integrated. So our voting application, at times they'll either connect through an API and talk to the wallet themselves to request the authorization of transactions of purchasing or casting your vote or purchasing a contest. And then once votes are cast on the blockchain, our server will constantly be scanning the votes and making the information available directly within the user interface. But that's how it works.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.